What's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 23 of the Roots of Success podcast. I am your host, Nate the Great Peterman, coming at you. And today I have a very special guest. I've had an honor to know him, I'd say probably for the past 3 years, maybe 4 years, to be honest. We've connected, of course, on social media, and we've been a part of, very like-minded communities, to say the least. I look up to this guy a lot. He's a very big influencer, especially in the DC area. My man, Chris Daniel. What's going on, brother?
What's happening? What's happening, Nate? Hey, happy to be on. This is about to be fun. You told me I'm episode 23. That's the GOAT's number. So you gave me some ammunition for this one. So thank you.
Hey, absolutely, brother. You got some big shoes to fill.
Absolutely.
But yeah, man, for those of you who might be wondering, who is Chris Daniel, right? Let me know a little bit more about him. Chris Daniel, PMP, is a certification guy. He's certified in project management, instructional design, Six Sigma, DISC, values, and most people don't even know what half of these even mean. For Chris, certifications are a way to leverage the playing field with his corporate clients. He's the man behind the 4 animals assessment: the gorilla, flamingo, chameleon, and turtle. The world hears the top ET, Inky Johnson, Jeremy Anderson, the NBA, the NFL influencers talk frequently about. Originally from small town Georgia, Chris relocated to the nation's capital after college and now works with teams across the globe, working with teams on communication, project management, and process improvement. Chris has built a thriving brand with the PMP Guru and has become part of the ETA squad as the consultant and facilitator of the crew. His 17 years of consulting experience with the federal government, private industry, and nonprofit organizations has positioned him to work with brands like Team USA Basketball, the Carolina Panthers, Starbucks, Boeing, the Steve Harvey Foundation, and much, much more. Man, I don't know how we can go from there, Chris.
Man, it's been an honor, man. I couldn't have planned it if I tried, Nate. Like, it really has been, all God, and then using what I learned. I tell people, man, I sat on it for some years. Like, I sat on these credentials for a long time. And once I finally started to tap into them and use them, like, it just kind of started to take off, man. So, yeah, I'm honored to be here, like I said. And yeah, let's dig into this. Let me unpack it for some people.
Hey, for sure, man. No doubt. Man, obviously with that introduction, I know there's a lot more of behind the scenes, with where you come from, Chris, of course, being down there in Georgia and whatnot, like the state. They call that peach land, right?
The peach state, absolutely. The peach. I'm getting some peaches today. We getting some peaches today too, yeah.
Man, I'm craving some peaches, man. You feel me?
Sir. Yes, sir.
So, man, sort of tell the audience, tell the listeners, the viewers, a little bit more about, your background, like growing up, really to where you got today. With the government, with the NFL. Some of the big time motivational speakers in the world, man. So, sort of break down where you got to where you're at today, man.
So, yeah, I'm from small town Georgia, man, a city called Thomaston. It's about an hour south of Atlanta. Red dirt and green trees, super Walmart, no mall. That's where I'm from, man. The sticks. And, humble beginnings. My grandparents had 11 kids. I grew up single mom, only boy, oldest child. I got 2 younger sisters. And, the first one, I tell people I'm the smart kid from the country that made it, right? Yeah. And it was always, I went to, I was athletic. I played football, basketball, ran cross country in high school. So I was always active. And then at the age of 17, my girlfriend said she was pregnant. And I was like, and so people don't just get pregnant. I know how they get pregnant, but it was a blow. Like, wait a minute, what? Like, I'm on this trajectory. I got recruited by a couple of D1 schools to play ball. I went to a couple of tryouts and they were interested. And I just chose, and again, I guess I got this pattern for choosing stuff people don't think I'm going to choose. But I chose to go to college on an academic scholarship, man. So I had A's and B's all through school. That led me into college. I went to Georgia Southern first and my nuclear family to go. And, I came back and forth every other weekend, came home and played dad, and, finished college in 4.5. partly because I sat out. Well, I thought I wasn't going back after my freshman year. I had just made up my mind I wasn't going back. Went to work at the mill. I was driving a forklift, mate, believe it or not, man. Driving the forklift. And I was cool making my little $800 every week. And I was like, yeah, I'm just, I'm going to do a box Chevy. I'm going to throw some 22s on it. I'm going to get me a little crib. And I'll be good, right? And, man, on my birthday, January, my birthday is New Year's Day. On my birthday, 1998, my mom said, okay, cool. So here's the deal. I ain't mad. You can work, build your life, but you can't live here. Like, there can't be two adults in the house. So you got until X date to be out. And I sent my FAFSA back into college, just hoping I could get back in. And I took my butt back to school and graduated 2 years after that. Upon graduation, man, about 3 months before I graduated, the government was doing these mock interviews for anybody who was interested in my major was print management. So that's almost like graphic design. They were looking for interns to come work for the summer with the government in DC. And they were like, it's a very limited program. Like, we were only looking for about 6 interns. I'm like, man, ain't no way I'm gonna make that, but I'm gonna go anyway. So picture me, this scraggly college senior. I had just started growing locks. I had locks for 15 years.
Yeah, I remember.
I had just locks, and so they were short and kind of out and nappy. I had a thrift store blazer on that I bought for like $3. The only pair of slacks I had that were a different color than the blazer. And then I had a button-up shirt, and I went to this interview and I killed it.
Wow.
And literally like a week later, they offered me the gig. They offered me the internship. And I'm like, I'm here in South Georgia. Like, how am I going to do an internship in Washington, D.C.? Like, what? And they're like, oh, no. Like, we'll fly you up. We'll take care of everything. We'll get you an apartment or some sort of housing. We want you. So out of that job fair, Nate, they only picked 3 people, and I was one of the 3.
Wow.
So moved up. I interviewed before. I fully accepted. I asked them if they could give me 2 months. I had 2 other interviews lined up. They're like, yep, give us a call beginning of May when you graduate to confirm. So I interviewed with a company here in Atlanta, interviewed with a company in Columbus. You all may know them as the Duck on TV, the Aflac. I interviewed with them for a management position. They wanted me and they courted me, but the money wasn't right. I was like, man. So I chose DC. Ended up staying in the government, man, for almost 10 years after that. Advanced really quickly. Got married in the process. And then literally, I decided to leave government at 31 years old. Simply because 2 things. My job, I was director of training. So my job was really to hire consultants to come in and do some of our training.
Right.
My main client was Congress. So I had to hire consultants to come in and train for members of Congress, right? Professional development stuff, project management, communication, all the stuff I do. And it took me maybe 2 or 3 times. My job was to review the contracts, sign the contracts, pay the consultants, make sure their prices were competitive. And it took me about 2 or 3 times after paying a consultant about $15,000 for a week of work. I was like, I'm on the wrong side of this thing. Like, I was doing well at 30, 31. I was making about $115,000 a year. So I was doing well, had a corner office, had a team of 22 people. Like, I was doing well.
Yeah.
But I didn't have my time. I had to go to work every day. I had every other Friday off. And on my Fridays off, I was on it was BlackBerries then. I was on my BlackBerry all day with my staff. And I was like, yo, wait, something got to give. Like, I see these consultants come in. I see the swag the consultants have. Like, they all wear nice suits and drive nice. Like, they take people out to lunch. Like, what's that about? So I learned the game. And I was like, yo, like, truthfully speaking, I didn't see many minority consultants. I didn't see many brown consultants. I'm like, okay. So here's what I noticed. I noticed an opportunity that I don't see many minority consultants, number 1. Number 2, I don't see any young consultants. Like, I see none under 45. Everyone I hired, they were older, probably on their second career. or had been with a firm for 10 or 15 years. And the stuff that they were consulting on and teaching, I had been credentialed in that stuff. And it didn't take you 10 years to really learn it. I was like, 2 or 3 years, you could really master this thing. So when I left government, I said, I'm going to start my own consulting firm. Sorry about that. I said, I'm going to start my own consulting firm. And that's exactly what I did, man. Out of the 3rd bedroom in my townhouse, literally started with my old busted laptop, started consulting. Landed my first client in about 6 months after I left, and just went from there, man. Just literally went from there. A lot happened in the process, of course. That marriage went through a divorce, which we co-parent fine today. Obviously, you hear my son in the background here. He's probably down to Georgia to see G-Mom. And while I got to work yesterday, and then that 17-year-old son that I told you about, when my girlfriend was pregnant, he took his life to suicide about 3 years ago. He was in the Army in Kuwait. And I got that knock at the door one Friday evening in June, about 8 o'clock. And that's that knock no parent wants to get. But the blessing in it was that after that, and Nate, like you said, you've known me for about 4 years. You probably saw about 3 years ago, my brand just take off. Because it was right after that I decided, like, no more mediocrity. Like, we're going to build this legacy. We're really going to change how this looks, man. So now, you know, I get to do what I love doing, man. Like I said, it's Thursday. I'm sitting in a hotel in south of Atlanta with my son right now. I got to work with a school yesterday. You know, got a nice little payday yesterday for a day's worth of work, and the rest of the week, man, I get to hang out. So, you know, it's shaping up to what I always thought.
Yeah.
And I attracted some cool clients along the way. Let me say that. I attracted some cool clients along the way. Yep.
Man, no, I'd say so. I mean, you got the Panthers, you got the Boeing. I mean,
man. So let me unpack how I got the clients, right? So
yeah.
I always tell people I really use like grassroots guerrilla marketing, low no cost strategies. And so one of the things I found was that there's a small organization in colleges that uses external consultants to do training, right? Every college has one. And literally, my small business advisor told me about this. So lesson number 1, entrepreneurs, if you don't know who your small business advisor is, go find them. Every county has one. Wow. Every county has one. And their job is they're really paid by the state to advocate for small businesses. They consult for free for you.
Interesting.
So, yeah, so I found mine. Somebody told me about mine, so that's why I'm passing it on. And me and him sat, and we had a couple of meetings, and he's like, let me introduce you to someone. So he introduced me to the lady that heads up this department, Nate. Wow. And within a week, they were like, hey, can you come in and just give us a 15 or 20-minute training session? And of course, what did I do? I did the animal. And they were like, whoa, like, yo, hold up. Like, we got several clients that need this. And I was like, all right, let me know how it looks. So they signed me to an annual retainer that they would pay me $1,500 for every client I facilitated for. And they would start sending clients my way. Okay, that was the first contract. All right. So then the second, so I was only doing 1 or 2 a month, nothing super crazy, but I was starting to be able to, pay for things, pay the bills, get caught up on some stuff. Yeah. That first couple of years of entrepreneurship, that can be rough if you don't plan them properly. It's true. And so I went through all the money I saved. I dipped into retirement money, and now I was starting to kind of make a little money. That contract turned into another contract. Someone saw me, one of the clients were like, hey, do I have to go through them to get you, or can I get you directly? I was like, no, you can book me directly. So they booked me directly. That turned into a 6-month contract. with a state agency to do training every month. I think that training was on like interviewing skills for managers. It was something real generic.
Right.
But here's the beauty in all of it, Nate. I got to create my own sessions. So now it's my content, it's my stuff, it's my brand, and people are starting to notice me as, hey, go hire that consultant. He's got good stuff.
Yeah.
So I rock with that college for about 3 years, and then they referred me to another one. And this other one had bigger, better clients, and they paid more. So I did both of them for a while. And, you know, some days I'd be with these clients and other days I'd be with these, but I had finally started getting my time back. And in between, I would create content. I would develop training sessions, and I would, you know, do that kind of stuff. And I stayed on this track, not knowing that I was getting my reps in. And that led to, first of all, a divorce. I was working way too much.
Right.
Wasn't putting the time in at home. It just was crazy. The money wasn't really right. It was okay. We were okay, but we couldn't really splurge. Like, we couldn't go on vacation.
Yeah.
And so I was at a crossroads, and, you know, met this other organization while I was on site. I was at this healthcare, it was assisted living facility. They had booked me for a 3-hour training session to train the people who kind of like the nurses in assisted living, to train them on how to communicate really with the patients.
Yeah.
Okay. It was out in Annapolis, cool little spot, private place. And I went out and smashed it. And I saw the VP of this consulting firm there. And I saw her peeking in the room when I was speaking. And when I finished, she was like, hey, so, you know, who do you work for? And I was like, yeah, I run my own consulting practice. Here's my card. We exchanged cards. She and I met up for lunch. And she said, hey, we're looking for a consultant. We just won this $200,000 contract in Baltimore. And we need a minority consultant to fulfill the role. They specifically want a minority consultant. I was like, okay. And they said, are you certified in this? And do you have this? And I met all the qualifications. That one time I did it for them, they were like, well, could you come, you know, give us a training, and then if it works out, then we'll send you to the client. Smashed it for them. Same thing, like a 20-minute training session. Within a week, they hit me up and was like, yo, so we got this client in Baltimore. Could you start with them next week? And I was like, yeah, okay. What does that look like? 6-month contract, 3 days a week, Morgan State University, the leadership team of Morgan State.
Wow.
That's when it really, really took off.
Oh, wow.
That 6 month turned into another 6 months, turned into them offering me a position as a consultant with their firm. Now, I was on verge of divorce. I had bought my time back. I wasn't really making the money I wanted to make, but I was doing okay.
Right.
I had saw my first like $10,000 gig at that point as an independent consultant. And trying to figure out like, okay, do I take this role? Do I keep doing it on my own? And my ex-wife now at the time, she's like, no, like take it. Like that's guaranteed money.
Yeah.
And that's how most people think. But here's the deal. The travel was non-negotiable. So what would you do? You know, it's a rock and a hard place. It's, okay, appease my wife, do this for a year, get the every 2-week paycheck, get things back on level playing field, and then launch back out on my own again. That was my thought process.
Right.
Well, it didn't quite work out like that. So I took it. I took the gig. It was like $72,000 a year. But the catch was it wasn't just Morgan State. It was Morgan State, it was New York, and it was Miami every month. Every month. Yeah, wow. for a week. For a week every month. Man. That's 3 clients a week. That's 3 weeks. I'm gone. Right. Non-negotiable. And I knew it. Like they explained it going in. Like, we're going to use you in bigger projects. It's only a matter of time. We're waiting for some things to close. So Nate, when I tell you, like, I took the gig in December I flew to Miami in December to meet the client. I flew to New Jersey to meet the client, New York, New Jersey Port Authority.
Yep.
And by January, I was traveling 2 to 3 weeks a month. Man. It happened just that quick. So of course, 6 months in, nailing the coffin in the marriage. That's a wrap. Like, now that I'm making the money, but now no time. So that's a wrap. We got a 1-year-old at the time, right? So I got to figure all that out. I was homeless for about 6 months because I didn't have anywhere to go.
Right.
So I literally was living in hotels. Of course, when I'm on site for clients, I'm in hotels 3 months. So the week that I'm home, I live in a hotel, right, in Maryland.
Yeah. Right.
Because it makes no sense to pay rent somewhere that I'm only for a week.
Exactly.
Right. And then by the time you pay travel and you get food and you pay a hotel bill for a week, like, where's your money? Like,
it's true.
You know what I'm saying? Like, you might have a few $100s left. So that was my life, man, for the rest of 2013. Like, that was my life. So 2014 came, finalized divorce, still working like this. I picked up another client. So I was in New Jersey and I was in New York. I was at LaGuardia doing training over there. So I got LaGuardia, I got Newark Airport, I got Miami Airport, I got San Francisco Airport.
Wow.
Right. And I was still doing a little bit with Morgan State every now and then. So approaching burnout, can't service my other clients that I had with the college, can't do any of that work because I'm never home.
Right.
I had to leave that for like a year and a half. And man, I approached the company like, yo, like, thanks for the opportunity, but like, this just doesn't work for me. Like, I got a little one. I got to have some sort of stationary position at home and I'm never home. Like, so would you consider a retainer? I give you guys 10 to 12 days a month for $5,500 a month. I'll still service the clients and I'll do the rest virtually. The first time they were like, no, the clients want you live. I was like, so then here's the deal. I can give you 90 days. After that, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
So in 90 days, I went back and they were like, can you just give us a 90-day extension? We want to work this out. You're a great consultant. I gave them an extension. Cool. After the second 90-day extension, we went back to the table, and this was 2015. And this was May of 2015. And they agreed to my terms.
Okay.
On the same day that I got a knock at the door that my son has took his life.
Wow.
Yeah. So this whole up and down pattern that I got going on, I'm like, yo, something got to give. Like, come on, man.
Right.
And right around that time, I was consulting in San Francisco, and I saw a flyer on social media that Eric Thomas was going to be out there. The same week I was out there. So I went. I'll never forget. It was $275. I might have had $350 in my account, mate.
Wow.
I paid the money for VIP. I went. I met E. I met C. And I was like, yo, like, I've been listening to y'all stuff for years. Just the same story everybody got, right? Been listening to y'all stuff on YouTube for years. Like, love what you're doing. Look, I'm a consultant. If I could ever be of service, I'm happy to. And it didn't go anywhere. It's like, okay, cool. That was it.
Right.
So it's summer. It's June 2015. I buried my son. My sister's in the hospital. I'm literally sitting in my apartment, haven't shaved, haven't showered in days. I'm staring at the ceiling like, what's my next move? Because I don't have anywhere to go. Like, what, I got eviction notices. It's the whole shebang. Wow. You name it, it was happening.
Yeah.
And I just made a decision that August, like, okay, like, I know this is not what it's supposed to look like. It's up to me to build this thing. So I'm going to build it. Nate, I kid you not, about a week or two after I made that declaration, I got an anonymous email. The email said, hey, my name is such and such. I got your name from such and such. We're in need of project management training. I heard you're the guy. I got 14 people who need to be PMP certified, and I got a $14,000 budget. Could you do it? And I was like, Absolutely.
Yeah, no questions.
Right. But it was in that moment where I'm like, wow, like this is it. Like all the stuff that I had been sitting on,
Right.
like now it's time to put it in practice. Now it's time to use it. So man, it just literally from 2015, like you said, man, that's when it started. And I started running my own boot camps. I was running them in hotels who were raking me over the coals with fees. Graduated from the hotel after running 2 or 3 boot camps in hotels. So got my own office space at the National Harbor at a portion of the price that I was paying for hotels. Wow. So I run my own boot camps over there. This whole 4 animals training that I was doing with clients at the time, this communication team building training, I had been coaching with CJ for about a year, helping me build my brand, helping me really attract better clients. I didn't know how I was going to pay CJ at times. It was a hefty amount, but we figured it out. I made it work. I made it happen. Yeah. CJ told me after a year of working with him, he said, so what you didn't know is you were the guinea pig. And I said, what do you mean? He said, so I've worked with clients, I've worked with entrepreneur types, but you were already making 6 figures before. And I wanted to see if my process worked for a guy who already knew how to go do this. Most people, we got to teach them the basics, but you had the mechanics. Right. So he said, so I want to make you a game changer coach. And I'm like, okay, what is that? And he said, well, we're going to start this speaker program called Game Changers. And I want you to be one of the 3 coaches. Like, the process, how to get people from A to Z. Like, it's proven you're making your own money. You're running your own boot camps now. Like, I want you to be a coach. So I became a game changer coach. And 2017, yeah, early 2017, they had the first conference in Atlanta called P7D, the 7 principles for being a dynamic speaker. And CJ said, hey, we want you to speak. And I'm like, okay, speak on what? Like, I have a lot of topics I can speak on. He's like, just do your thing. In traditional CJ fashion. Just do your thing. And I'm just like, okay, my thing is like 3 things. Like, I don't tell me, give me some guidance. He's like, I'll just do your thing. So luckily, I ran into Carl in the airport. Oh, and wow. I was like, Carl, I need to see the slide deck, man. I just give me some framework for what everybody's presenting on because I don't know what I'm going to talk about or whatever. He was like, I got you. He showed me on CJ's session, and I was like, okay, got it. I'm going to do the 4 animals. Like, I got it. And little did I know I was the first speaker of the day, right? So C does his little introduction or whatever. He's like, yo, so we got my man coming up. Y'all gonna love it. Chris, where you at? And I'm just like, oh, like, to kick it off?
You got the right one?
Well, imagine. I kick it off in front of 250 people at the W in Atlanta. You got Eric Thomas in the back of the room watching. You got CJ in the back of the room watching. You got Inky Johnson who walks in. I'm just like, oh, man.
Man, the pressure.
But I literally, man, I did what I knew. I did what I had been doing for years with clients. And I smashed it, and it just went from there. So E fell in love with the assessment that very day. And really, we've been rocking ever since, man. So he became a client, and you see my son here. He became a client. He became a client. And yeah, man, we took it from there, and we built something real special, man. It really, this 4 animal certification this 4 animals program rather has really taken shape. It went from there to speaking at the Take Control conferences. We've done 5 of them this year. We're in San Francisco in a few weeks. And really, it's so funny. We're in San Francisco in a few weeks, and that's where it all started.
That's where it all started,
yeah. So it is, man. It's one of those things where it's like, God, really? Like, this is really how you gonna line this up?
Right.
And man, yeah, in the process, last summer, Steve Harvey's team approached me about speaking to some youth. So I flew down to Atlanta and came down to Georgia and spoke at his camp for young men. Last summer, there was somebody in one of the audiences, one of the coaches for the Carolina Panthers. He saw me speak. He was like, yo, I need this for my coaches. Like, when can we talk? made them, turned them into a client. And then just here recently, the NBA reached out a couple of weeks ago. And I'm getting ready to do some more stuff with them. So yeah, man, it really, when I tell you, like, I couldn't have planned it if I wanted to. I couldn't have planned it if I wanted to.
Man, no, Chris,
Yeah.
that's incredible, man. Just your story. And because I think back, man, and I'm just, going back to, like, with you doing works with, of course, the government and everything in the beginning, you easily could have settled. There could have been not just that time, but there could have been way many times where you could have just said, yeah, man, I'm content with life. But you just had that grit, that mentality that was like, you know what, I'm going to keep going. And I feel like,
I tell people, Nate, like really, oh man, there were so many times where I almost asked for a job back in government because I left on great terms. Like, I literally was like, you know what, like, that salary sounds real good right now.
Yeah.
I might want to go ahead and go back to that. But no, like, every time I thought about it, like, another opportunity would fall in my lap. I'd get another call from somebody. I'd get an opportunity to go train or speak somewhere, or be on a conference call that led to a couple $100 sale. Like, it never let me go back, man. It never let me go back. So, yeah.
No, absolutely. And I mean, your story is just like the actual, I guess you can say, version of the entrepreneur journey. Like, it's literally a roller coaster. Like, you were at your ups, and then you went to your downs, ups, downs, and then you finally got to that up, and it's like everything started, to come together, like, each piece to the puzzle. And it's just incredible, man, seeing like everything that you're doing. Of course, like the 4 animals assessment. Oh my gosh, I mean, I'm seeing, a bunch of people that are just talking about that nonstop. And of course, in, Breathe University, that's a huge thing. And it's become like its own community and even a lifestyle, and I think that's cool, in itself. And man, so let me ask you this, Chris. Of course, being where you're at today, I got a lot of entrepreneurs, I got a lot of business owners that, of course, listen and they view the podcast and everything, especially a lot of millennials, right? So let's say, maybe somebody is in business, or they've been through a couple businesses already, and they're getting to the point where they're just like, man, I don't know, man. I don't know if I can do this anymore. I feel like I'm failing too much. I feel like I just don't have the right guidance and everything, and things like that. So I guess, what kind of advice would you give to somebody like that in terms of to keep going and to just be continuous in the whole entire journey, to never like settle and just keep going,
Yeah. So when we talk about developing grit, like, it's real, like, really understanding, like, sorry, this light is flickering over here. Really understanding like what you're put here to do. Like, I think people negate that for the dollar sometimes, right? Like, so really understand, like, for me, it meant understanding, Chris, that you're a consultant. I tell people at the conferences, man, I finally, during that whole grief period, man, I finally looked up my name. Like, and I don't want to turn this into like a churchy thing, because I looked up my name before, but I had never looked it up biblically, right? I'd never looked it up biblically. And one day, something just said, hey, look up what your name means biblically. And I was like, okay. So I looked it up. And my last name being Daniel, I just read the book of Daniel. And I'm like, this dude was a consultant. Like, he was an advisor to kings. Like, this is what I'm supposed to do. Like, I got it now. Yeah. So I had always had this affinity to consulting, helping groups grow, helping groups improve, helping individuals and companies get better. Like, I always loved that. And for me, it was just that the grit to see it happen, the grit to work with some of the best organizations. I don't mind, I tell people all the time, a lot of times the consultant, like, you never know who the consultant is, but I can always see when a person or a company has massive success. My question is always like, okay, what consulting firms you work with? Because I know I can see the work of a consultant. I can see it. Wow. So I don't mind being that guy. Like, a lot of people here, my clients, like, ET talk about the animals and they're like, oh, I want to do that thing ET does, but they don't know I'm the guy behind the scenes, and I'm okay with that. Like, I'm truly okay with it. Yeah. As long as they win, and then of course there's a small fee, and there's a fair fee associated with it.
Gratitude,
then,
yeah.
a little gratitude associated with it. Then we're good. But no, man, it really, I think, to get back to answer your question, you talked about what advice would I have? Like, form that grit. Like, if you know there's something you're supposed to do, like, it won't leave you alone. Like, you'll do other stuff and you'll still come back to that. Whatever that is, like, form the grit to see it through until you earn what you want to earn, until you're impacting on the level you want to impact, until all the stuff you thought about, you're actually seeing it happen. That's what it takes. And people always ask me, well, how long is that? And I always say, as long as it takes. Like, for me, this process has been 17 years. I started at the government in 2001, right? I read a quote by CeeLo Green that I love. He said, it only took me 18 years to become an overnight superstar. And I'm like, yeah, that's about right. That's
right.
That's about right. Because people don't see when you started, the days where you can't make ends meet, and the peanut butter and jelly in between, and the ramen noodles, and like, nobody sees that. Like, when I went to speak at that conference in Atlanta for the first time with ET, Nate, I had $200 to my name.
Man,
I had $200 to my name, and I had about 80,000 Marriott points and about 60,000 American Sky Miles. So I'm like, oh, so I can get a flight on miles and stay on points? Bet, let's go.
Hey,
let's go.
Credit all day.
You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying?
I feel you.
Yeah, and that turned again into this lifestyle brand that I'm building now. I always laugh. I'm like, man, like, I get to work and play at the same time. I get to take my son to watch me speak. I get to, Team USA flew me out to Vegas with my son. He's sitting at the table with KD, with Kyrie Irving, and his Transformers while I'm speaking.
That's
like,
awesome.
You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, like, where does that happen?
Right.
And the funny thing is, to answer your question again, like, I always saw it. I didn't necessarily see Kevin Durant, but I always saw like top performers advising on small groups to go from small company to big company. I always saw, the $25,000, $30,000 months. Like, I always saw that. I never knew how, but I always saw it. So the how to answer, because I know people have that question, how would you do it?
Right.
It's just working. It really is just working on what you saw. That doesn't mean necessarily working from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and sleeping 3 hours and doing it again, because I did that too, and that'll mess up your health.
Yeah.
But it's being consistent in the content you're putting out and the people you want to attract. It's learning to love your clients in the process of getting clients. It's looking back at how you got a client and what you did that was horrible that you should never do again. And then the 3 or 4 things that you did that worked, or the 2 things you said that made them say, I want that. Like, that's what it takes. It takes you really, that saying we have, honor thy craft. That really is what it means. You got to honor your craft. You got to put some respect on that craft, man.
Man, nah, straight up, Chris. Let me ask you this: how what's the word? How much has, I guess you can say, like, the law of manifestation? How much impact has that had in your life so far?
Major. So I read The Secret years ago when it came out. And I'll be honest, it was way over my head at the time. But I bought the book and I read it again. And then about 2 or 3 years ago, a good friend of mine was like, hey, you should look into law of attraction and law of manifestation. I'm like, yeah, I ain't really, like, okay, whatever. And I was like, the least I could do is go to YouTube and look it up, right? That's the least I could do.
Yeah.
And that's where it started. And I really, really understood that you gotta not be a victim anymore and attract victory in all that you do. And you gotta become a victor. And you can't keep saying things that position you as a victim. And you can't keep saying, I'm a one-owned minority small business consulting firm. Like, okay, then that's what you're gonna be. But the moment you change to, no, like I work with high profile clients and I help them see results. The moment I start saying that kind of stuff, like stuff just changed. So my friends, they literally, man, they're like, man, like, how do you work? And I'm like, what do you mean? I'm like, sometimes I'm on podcasts. Sometimes people pay me to get on Zoom and talk for an hour. Sometimes they'll fly me to Atlanta and want a day full of strategy. And they were like, yeah, so how much is that pay? And I'm like, it's all different. Like, you know, some people, they'll pay 10 grand. Some will pay 15. Some will pay 5. It just depends. Yeah. He's like for one day of work, I'm like, yeah, but they're going to have 6 months of success from this one day of work.
Oh, yeah.
And that, again, when I saw it, Nate, when I saw me working like this, when I read $1 Million Consulting, when I reached out to Alan Weiss and he messaged me back, and when I really started leveling up in all areas, man, and I understood that I really could attract and build the life I wanted, that's when it happened, man. So meditation is a big part of my life now. Law of attraction, I study it. Law of manifestation, like I live it. And it's just a good time to be alive, man.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I it's funny, man, because even from a young age, you know, whenever I was in high school, of course, getting and seeing one of ET's videos, I look at that and it's like, that was meant to happen. That wasn't just some random thing. You know, I was meant to get connected with, you know, people like yourself in the right community. And I'm 22 now, and just having, you know, the long relationship that I have, like with you, and of course, like with E and the ETA squad. I mean, it's just incredible. And I'm such a firm believer in, of course, the law of attraction and manifestation. And I was the same way. Like I didn't really think too much of it. I wasn't that deep. Like I'd say, you know, a couple or a few years back, but whenever I finally started to read like The Secret, right? The Invisible Power. Those really stood out to me, and it was incredible. So I'm a firm believer that definitely works, to say the least. And man. So let's talk a little bit more about, of course, the grit, right? Now, you know, having grit is one thing, but I feel like some people, they might have an ego grit into that. You know what I mean? Because you know, with what you were saying, you know, you could totally, if you weren't as like developed, Chris, you could totally have an ego that said, no, 4 animals is mine. Like it's solely mine. Nobody else touches it, right? But I think with you being more open and of course with you letting people, you know, be open to that, I think is incredible, because it goes to show who your true character is. So what would you say is the difference from regular grit to ego grit, and how could somebody sort of like transition to actual grit? You know?
Yep. So that's a great question, Nate. And I'll be fully transparent. Like I struggled in the beginning with it. It was because I was like, no, this is my content. You know what I had to go through to develop this? Like, no. And what I realized was that closed-fisted mentality, it just wasn't helping. It was getting me the same results. The results weren't bad. They just weren't phenomenal.
Right.
It wasn't until I really came to a point where I said, you know what? Like, if the creator gave me this, then it's mine. I don't have to prove it. It's mine. So I don't care who goes out and facilitates it. It's not me.
Right.
It came from the source. So if he gave me that, then he gave me a bunch of other stuff too. And so I had to get to that point where I learned leverage, because that's what I wanted. I always saw myself having a few affiliates who go out, you know, I called them clones at the time, but who go out and they go create their own revenue streams, and I just get a percentage of that. I always saw it. So for me to be building that now, it's amazing. And with that, like, you know, law of manifestation and law of attraction, they talk about this, being able to attract and then give and keep that circle going. Like, so the minute you attract and close it off, like that messes the cycle up. But as long as you keep it open enough to give and give freely without expectation, right? That for me is where I not only keep myself humble, but it keeps growing. You know, it keeps growing. Again, victor, not victim. Nobody took anything from me. Nobody put their stamp on anything. It's no, You created this content that's fire that people need to be blessed. So let people get it, put a price tag on it, let them get it, let them create their success from it, and then create another product, right? So that's literally, that's how you develop it. And the more you put out, you trademark and you copyright stuff, but the more you're obedient with your gifts, we know the story. The man with 10 gifts who doubled his gifts, he got more. That's just how it goes. So yeah, man, I fully believe it. I'm seeing it happen. I'm not perfect. I still struggle at times. Like, okay, do I put this out? Do I trademark or copyright this? How much access do I give to people? I still have all those questions. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, no, if it was given to you to bless people, then bless people with it. It's real simple. I was telling the group I was with yesterday, Nate. It's funny. I was telling the group I was with yesterday. Let's talk about people who are making the kind of money you want to make, right? And everybody in the room like, oh, we want to make at least a couple million a year.
Right.
And I said, okay, let's talk about people who are making that kind of money. Let's talk about influencers. So they named Oprah. They named Jordan. They named Steve Jobs. They named all these greats, right? And I said, okay, money aside, like, how many people did they inspire? Like, how many people did they bless? Oh, millions. And I'm like, so you see the pattern. You got to bless millions to get millions. You do see the pattern, right? Like, so when you try to take it back or hold on to it or claim it as yours, you can't bless people like that. You can't inspire people like that.
Wow.
So, yeah, it just was another moment like, yep, Chris, like, you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. The boomerang effect is in effect. It'll come back tenfold. Just keep the hand open and keep putting out dope content.
Man, that's so true. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. What would you say is the most difficult? Maybe it's a characteristic. Maybe it's an attribute for actually like staying on that high of a level. Because I'm sure, man, like temptations there, right? So many distractions. Like the bigger that you get, I can imagine that it just gets so insane, like the busyness, the workload. What would you say is the most difficult part of actually staying on that high of a level consistently?
I think the biggest thing, and it goes back to the keys, right? Rest, meditation, vision. Rest, meditation, like what did you see? What did you see it looking like? What was the goal? Have you strayed from what you wrote down in January? If you have, where did you stray and where do you need to get back on track? Is this real? I was telling, I spoke on ET's EBB call last Thursday. And I spoke on, and one of the points I was talking about was it's only an opportunity if it's mutualism, if both of you win from it. If somebody's getting over, it's not an opportunity. So that's how I look at every call, every podcast interview, every opportunity to go work with someone new. Can they get results? Can I get results from this? Like, that's all. If the answer is not a resounding yes, then I don't do it. That's what has kept me grounded, man. And I say this with the utmost respect, Nate.
Yeah.
But I get these emails from, hey, come jump on my podcast, and I'll go look. And it's not about the number of followers. It's what I feel from you. Like, if you're trying to just get from me and it's not mutual, then I'm sorry, but like, I won't do it. Yeah. But if I can bless your audience and your audience can bless me, and it doesn't have to always be financial. But if it's mutualism involved, then I always flow with the limited yes, right? The limited yes. Yes, I can do the podcast for 30 minutes if I don't feel that connection. Yep, I can give you 3 bullet points. I can blow it out of the water from you, and in return, this is what I want. Can that work? And if it can, then go. We'll rock with it, and it's a win-win. But if not, then somebody's at a point where they're taking advantage, and I don't do well with that.
No, absolutely. No, man. I really do appreciate you doing the podcast for real, because I know you're very busy, of course, with the clients that you have. And it's incredible, man. Obviously, like with the value that you drop and everything. And man, I'm sure people might be wondering, like, hey, what is this 4 animals assessment? So, man, sort of do a brief a description of it a little bit, because I know the
Yeah.
four animals, they might be thinking, man, do I got to go to a zoo to see this or something? You know? So,
Absolutely.
man,
You go to
yeah.
one every day. You go to one every day. You don't even know it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, great question. So the four animals, man. I was doing this training in Miami with a group of leaders, about 30 leaders. And Miami has that language barrier
Oh,
for
yeah.
Spanish. So some things don't always translate, right?
Right.
So I'm gonna move over. My son is in iPad world over there on
Do your
YouTube with
thing,
the
yeah.
Legos. Oh man, he's doing his thing. I love
Got
it.
to keep them
Um,
occupied, right?
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
But no. So I'm in Miami training, and I'm doing this training with some leaders. And you know me, man, I'm always like, was the training super effective? Can you guys take it and practically put stuff in place? And they were like, it was good. And you know me, I'm like, good.
Yeah.
Like I don't do good. Like, come on, I need more than that.
Right.
So they said, yeah, it was just some things that didn't quite translate for us. Like we didn't understand X, Y, and Z. And I took that, and it was a hard blow to take, but I took it and said, okay, what can I do to go back and make this better? So I took the verbiage out of it, and I replaced the verbiage with some animals. And I said, everybody knows animals. I don't care what continent you're on or from. Like
Right.
everybody knows animals, right? So instead of using the words decisive, I said gorilla. Instead of using the word social or engaging or interactive, I used flamingo. Instead of steady, consistent, supportive, changing, adaptable, flexible, I used chameleon. And instead of slow, meticulous, perfectionist, detail oriented, I used turtle. I went back to Miami that next month. I did this same training with animals instead of words, and it took off. Like
Wow.
when I tell you it took off, like every month for the remainder of that contract, I had to run that session twice during the week I was there. Every month. And we're talking anywhere from 50 to 100 people at a time. You know, airports, I was training in airports. So airports have about 18 to 30,000 employees.
Right.
So they would funnel through my training workshop. And I would host about 10 to 12 training sessions a week. All like 90-minute sessions, 90 minutes to 2-hour sessions. And of those 12, 2 of them had to be the animals every month in Miami Airport. And then Newark caught wind of it. So I did it in Newark. And then LaGuardia caught wind of it. So then I did it in LaGuardia. And of course, San Francisco caught wind of it. So I literally was doing that session probably 8 to 10 times a month for about 2.5 years. And I saw what it did on the corporate space, but I hadn't tried it in entrepreneurial space yet.
Right.
So when I did it at the conference with ET, I said, let me see what this feels like in this space. And I did it, and it took off. He loved it. So now I just paired the real assessment with it. And everything's on 4animalsassessment.com, the number 4animalsassessment.com, where they can go and take the actual assessment that they hear ET talk about every week on the podcast. And they can see a video of me and E talking through it. They can see some of the other clients I work with, and they can then become part of that experience. So, yeah, man, it really has created a nice little lane, the consulting lane, with the entrepreneur space. I'm certifying a few people to be able to go train in their industries and their niches with it. And yeah, man, we're rocking and rolling with it, mate.
Oh man, no, I mean that's that right there. It's funny, you made that slight little adjustment to add the animals
Slight
into it, and it
adjustment.
just exploded from there.
Slight adjustment, Nate. So look, it's funny. I was talking about innovation yesterday, right?
Right.
And people think of innovation as, oh man, I take this little seed and I grow it into this house. And I'm like, no. Think of the iPhone. There's a 7, there's a 7 Plus, there's a 7 Plus S, there's an 8, it's little bitty iterations. It's small adjustments, man. That's what innovation is. So I just made a small adjustment based on what the client wanted. It wasn't even something I wanted. I thought it was 100%. And they were like, yeah, it's 85. I mean, for you to come back and do it though, can you make some changes? I don't know what you need to do, but like we don't quite understand those words. Like, can you make it different? I was like, all right. So yeah, man, we just made that slight adjustment and it's out of here, Nate.
And for you to be open-minded about that too, because a lot of people, they're like, nah, man, this is mine. I got it. Like, I'm not hearing no feedback from my clients or customers or my audience. And man, that's amazing, Chris. Holy, I know. Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, it's exploding. You know, I mean, you're getting ready to
Yeah,
certify people. And what's
yeah.
the website? Again, I'll attach it in the description.
It is it's 4animalsassessment.com. The number 4,
Okay.
4animalsassessment.com, and everything is there, man. Once they give us their contact information, they literally go into the funnel where they'll get emails about the training and the next time they can see it live and how they can get certified. It's all in there, man.
Okay, perfect, man. Now I'll put that in the description below because I know a lot of people, I'm sure, of course, you can never know yourself enough, right? Whether it's a personality
At
test
all.
you're taking or the 4 animals test, assessment, it's something that I would definitely highly recommend, especially if you're into sales, psychology, or just anything with like customer service and just knowing yourself in general. So I'll for sure attach that in the links in the description below. Man, you got social media, Chris, or
yeah, I real quick, yeah, I wanted to say, man, look, here's the funny thing though. So with the assessment, what I just learned about me, during that grieving period, man, I really couldn't really blow my brand up until I figured out who I was, what I was put here to do, right? So I told you I read the book of Daniel. It said consultant, it said advisor to kings, right? So this is what this assessment does for entrepreneurs. It really helps them figure out who they are, what they're here to do, like flat out. It specifically breaks you down and it tells you like, yo, this is what you're great at. Like, this is what you're dominant at. Like, you should probably not focus much over here because that stuff you're whack. But this stuff, like, you're a beast at. You should probably spend your energies here. And that's what I've seen it do in the entrepreneur space. So, socially, yep. You asked what are the social? Yep, on IG and Twitter, at Consult in Jeans, CONSULT, the letter NJEANS at Consulting Jeans. And the website is one Chris Daniel, ONECHRISDANIEL, and you can find all the social contacts from there.
I got you, man. Yeah, I think back again to the assessment. I mean, there's so many things. A lot of people, they just don't even know what they want to do, and I think having a test like that, an assessment that can actually break down which 4 animals that you are, because that right there alone, that can add so much value depending on which lane you should go. Because a lot of people, especially the millennials, they might be saying, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur, but yet I'm really good at, maybe painting, right? Or maybe I'm really good at something more like, book smart or something with numbers. So I think that right there would be perfect for any millennial that, of course, whether they're in high school or college or, I mean, even just coming out of college or something like that. Like, is there, and that's another question, is there like a certain age group or does it matter at all?
Nate, so man, I'm so glad you asked that question, right? So I'll be honest. I used to be selfish about it because the psychology of an individual tells me that people don't really have their preferences set to maybe mid-20s, right?
I got you.
But then the more I think about what you said, and again, thank you for saying it. You don't even know that you said it, but here's what I see happening. I see a tremendous boost in millennial entrepreneurs. Right? So I can't limit it to 20-somethings when I got this 16-year-old kid over here making $300,000 in the lawn company. Yeah. Like, he needs to know who he is in this season of his life. So what I will say is the moment you have the ability to make a decision that you want to go into business, then you probably should take that assessment, because that'll give you some insight. And yes, it'll change the younger you are. So the older you get, it'll change as you mature and change your perceptions about business. But yeah, man, like I won't even limit it anymore. Yeah, anybody can take it. If you got a credit card and $85, you literally can go on there. It takes about 10 or 12 uninterrupted minutes. On the back end, you're going to get the full customized assessment based on how you answer the questions. I don't even see it until you complete it. but it's all you. Every assessment is different. I don't care how similar the people are. And not only do they get it emailed to them, they get an on-demand training session from me that breaks it down for them, that tells them exactly how to interpret it. And then you got options if you want to go deeper. So yeah, man, it's all included.
And yeah, I know a lot of these courses and assessments. I mean, they're charging $700 out
Oh
there, and
yeah,
they don't, and that's just the test. They don't even
yeah,
provide videos or anything else that goes into it. It's like a little collage of things, you know?
yeah, yeah. Again, me moving my ego
Yeah.
and really saying, what do my clients need who take this assessment? Because for the first year and a half, I literally did every one-on-one after someone took the assessment. I literally
Wow.
hopped on Zoom with over 100 people. Like, here's how you break it down. And again, I just realized the pattern. Like, okay, Chris,
Right.
you're saying some of the same stuff on every Zoom video. Why don't you
Yeah.
just record a generic one, pull your assessment up, go through yours, tell them how to read theirs, and then if they want to deep dive, offer them an opportunity to get on the phone with you. So it's just developed over time. It's innovation. It's iteration after iteration after iteration, trying to make the experience better.
Absolutely. Delegating your time. Oh man,
Yeah,
that's something I'm even learning about myself too.
yeah,
Like, if you're repeating something or if you're doing the same exact call over and over, man, get smarter,
yeah,
work smarter, don't work
yeah,
harder,
yeah. Can
But
you group it? Can you zoom it? Can you record it? Can
yeah,
think all those ways you can innovate that experience, man. Yep.
heck yeah, man. Again, I'll attach the assessment below, and then I'll attach your social links for the viewers and the audience to follow you, man. Man, Chris, as always, bro, I really appreciate you just dropping value, man. At the end of each episode of the podcast, I always have the guests sort of end it on an execution note, something that they can actually apply, not just
Yeah.
something that goes out through one ear throughout the other. So, what is that one tip? Maybe we already touched on it, like with the grit, or maybe it's something completely different. What's that one note, one tip that you would give somebody to go out and execute on today, man?
Create what your grit looks like.
Mm,
Like, don't allow anyone else to say, oh, I had to do this and do that to get where I'm at. That's their journey. Like, you get to create what yours looks like. That's the beauty of entrepreneurship. So you get to create. If you want to work 2 hours a day, then it's only a matter of time before you see your success. Or 8 hours a day. Or if you want to work 2 hours and then do a podcast and go to the pool with your son and then come back and do a Zoom call this evening at 4 and then have dinner with your mom. Like, that was always the grit that I wanted.
right.
That was my grind. So create your own grit, create your own grind, and then look, let the results do the rest. Like, just let the results do the rest.
Heck yeah, brother. Create your own grit, create your own grind. Chris Daniel, man, I really appreciate you being on, brother.
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity, mate.
Hey, for sure, man. We'll talk soon, okay?
All right, talk soon.